We got Rob here from Scoop, and Rob and I have had this since our first meeting, just like ready and in the making. You ready to go, Rob?
I'm ready. I'm a little nervous, as I told Tam, but I'm ready.
Are you nervous? Nah.
Just to
Okay.
debate you.
So I'm going to be the debate moderator today. And Rob, I just want to let you know I've debated with Allie a lot, and she is really good. So not to put any fear in you, I know
Too
you
much
have some
pressure
great.
for me, guys. No.
But this is just going to be fun, and we were going to have some, strong takes. I would love for comments in the audience, but most of all, just have fun with it. And so today, you all are going to be debating the hot topic of to go hybrid or not hybrid. And so we have Allie, who obviously is the co-writer of Remote Work, since she set up this event. But more importantly, we have Rob here. He is the founder of Scoop. They create these really cool Slack integrations that make it easy to schedule in-office days, have invites, scheduling that you're going to be out of office, so making that whole hybrid world work. He is launching next week a thing called the Flex Index, which is this comprehensive data set of which companies have gone remote or hybrid or fully in the office so that you can get a better sense of where you may want to apply. And so with that, they're going to discuss and debate flexible options with work. And I think they've already had some calls discussing this to begin with. So with that, we are going to do an opening of 1 minute each. And Allie, you got the timer? Awesome. And it's going to be why this matters. Why does hybrid even matter? So 1 minute, Allie.
All right. So first of all, hybrid to me matters because it's become this buzzword. We're getting it thrown around in the media. We're getting companies saying that they're remote first, they're hybrid. But even according to Rob's Flex report, the definitions are not clear. People at leadership levels of companies don't know what they're talking about. I'm sorry, I love you all, but you need to figure out a clear definition for what it means to work remotely, for what it means to work hybrid. Hybrid does not describe a workplace strategy. It describes your real estate strategy. To me, this is important because in the future of work, we're operating with laptops. We're saving documentation to the cloud. If one employee is not on site, the company is remote and should operate as it is a remote company. The office then becomes a tool. And as we know, it's not about the tool, it's about how you use the tool.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks, Allie. Okay, Rob, why does hybrid matter? Go for it.
Well, first, let's start with the definition, because I agree with Allie that sometimes it's unclear. When I think about hybrid work, it's a work location model where employees spend part of their time in the office and part of the time working remotely. And as Allie and Tam mentioned in the tee up, it's a topic that's near and dear to my heart for a couple of reasons. One, for me, I feel like hybrid in theory should be this like best of both worlds opportunity where you have the office available to you to be able to do more collaborative work, to connect socially, things that maybe you can do in person. And then you can do that when it works for you, and when not, you work remotely for more heads down or other things. When it's kind of best for you and what's going on in your life. But it's hard, and it's hard to kind of like navigate and get some of that stuff right. That's why we spend a lot of time at Scoop building software to try and create that. But I'm excited to debate about hybrid and why I think with the right enablement around it, and if you can get the right practices and enabling tools and things like that in place, hybrid actually could be the best model for the majority of people in the workforce.
Awesome. Okay. So we have an introduction right now on why it matters. And I started the timer a little late. So, okay, great. Time's up.
Beat the timer too. I'm impressed.
But with that, we have Allie coming in strong. Companies don't know what they're talking about. And hybrid is actually about real estate. And then we have Rob coming in strong that he thinks it's going to be the best model for everyone around. And so with that, we're going to go into our making our cases round, 3 minutes each. Allie, let me get this timer going. And I want you to make a strong case. And as anybody has questions in the audience and you want to react, if you totally disagree, this is your time to have a voice in that comment channel. Okay, Allie,
Are you
on your
giving me
mark.
the timer, or am I giving myself the timer? Okay, there we go. So the reason why I think that hybrid is not going to be the best of both worlds in the future is that even if you are using the office as a tool to gather, to build relationships, things that I do think have validity, to Rob's point, it is simply limiting the benefits of being a fully remote or a distributed team, such as you're limiting yourself to one geographical area or geographical areas around multiple offices, which can have an impact in reducing your global talent pool. And so you will not be able to hire the best people globally anywhere in the world unless they want to come into your office for a certain amount of time throughout the day. And maybe people are not about to fly from Kenya twice a week to go to your office in Chicago. And so just realistically, it's limiting things like your diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging benefits. It's limiting the type of innovation that you get because you're not having a cross-cultural team living and working where your customers are living and working, with other cultures bringing in a different insight into how you can use your end product, what type of services need to exist for employees inside the organization, how you can offer better user experience to your end user all across the world. Having global coverage without impacting people's days in annoying ways, because you can have the time zone hack of having an IT person be on call globally throughout the world without anyone getting up at 2 a.m. to figure out why your website is down. Simply by opening up a model in which you're fully distributed allows you to lean into all these benefits. And if that's not enough reason, what we're seeing is that the bigger the company is, the more structured they're becoming, which to me is just a red flag. It's screaming that you are becoming hybrid for the wrong reasons. In fact, I would argue that people are becoming hybrid for 3 reasons. One is the sunk cost fallacy. How many companies that are going hybrid already have leases they can't get out of? 2, are they just satisfying? Half of the employees want to go remote. Half of them want to work in an office. What's the best way to make everyone happy? Oh, we're hybrid. We compromise. Is that intentional? Are they thinking of the company culture in the right way? Are they thinking truly of the best behaviors and processes to get everything done? And 3, it's self-serving reasoning. An example of this is we worked with an accountant who enjoyed being at the office, who trusted her employees more when she was at the office, and therefore she wanted all of her employees to be at the office. That was for her, not for the benefit of her employees or the end user of the product. And so as managers grow, they need to learn skills to adapt to everybody in all surroundings, not just do what works best for them.
Oh, Allie. I feel like you got really started that last minute. So we have Allie fired up.
The timer like adds energy. I like this timer.
Rob, I am looking forward to your thoughts and your strong take on why hybrid is the future. I'm going to give you 3 minutes and go.
All right. I'm going to make 5 points around why I think that hybrid is going to be the best model for not everybody. I wouldn't say everybody, but I think for the majority of the workforce, end up being the best model. Number one, hybrid work already is the future, at least in terms of what the data is showing. And a couple of notes on that. One, we have data in the Flex Index on 4,000 firms across 25,000 offices and 100 million employees, right? So a pretty robust view of what's going on. We found half of the companies in the database are fully on site. The other half offer some level of work location flexibility. If we look at the companies that offer work location flexibility, 85% of them are hybrid. 15% of them are fully remote. And if I had to guess where that's going to trend, I think that more of those fully on-site companies, for a lot of the reasons that Allie has described, will start to shift toward hybrid over time. So it's only going to be a bigger piece, I think, of the overall picture in the future. Second, it's really important to understand that hybrid doesn't mean forced days in the office. Actually, looking at the same data set, said 43% of firms overall are hybrid. More than half of those firms are actually employee's choice, which means the employee gets to choose if they go into the office, if ever. The other half have structured hybrid models where maybe it's a minimum number of days or specific days. And so hybrid doesn't have to equal an arbitrary requirement to come into the office. I would actually submit that the best form of hybrid is where employees get to choose and they decide if going into the office is valuable for them or work remotely when they want to. Third point I'll make is that there's some really good data out there that most employees actually want hybrid work. And Nick Bloom, professor out of Stanford, who puts out a lot of stuff on this topic, asked the average US employee, did a big survey and said, how many days in the office do you want on a weekly basis? 18% said 0 days and 81% said 1 day or more. And so weighted average for employees is they want about 2 days in the office and 3 days at home. So it's not just that the employers are picking hybrid at scale, it's that employees are actually saying they desire it. And so, kind of like last couple points, why do employees want this? I think for a lot of people, relationship development still happens in person. It doesn't mean that it can only happen in person, but it's an opportunity to collaborate on certain types of work that are maybe harder to do remotely, or have coffee or lunch with folks in the office, feel more connected to your company culture. For a lot of folks, that's really valuable, and they enjoy being able to do that on a weekly or a monthly basis. And so I would submit that as my final point, hybrid work in its pure form, where you get to choose when you go into the office or not, and you can do it when it works for you, but work remotely when it works for you too. I think that's the best model for a lot of folks.
Okay, awesome. That was a really strong case as well. Allie, there was a lot of stats thrown. There was some name dropping at Stanford. So just want to say that is a comprehensive argument. You are up against a real challenger. We are now going to go through a rebuttal. You get 2 minutes. You can say some lessons learned. We also had a comment from the audience that I thought was interesting. Emily asks, in the office or in an office when we're talking about that hybrid work. So with that, Allie, we're going to give you 2 more minutes. Think on your feet and let's see your points in rebuttal. Rob.
Well, I don't want to ignore the data. I think that saying half of employees are choosing when they can come into in office out of 85% hybrid is an interesting data point. To me, I agree with Rob. It shows that people want relationships, that they want to build a sense of belonging inside a community that is their company. However, in qualitative conversations with people in other companies, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to name drop those, so Facebook, we've heard anecdotal information that it only takes 1 or 2 in-person meetings to build upon relationships throughout a year. And so in my rebuttal, I would argue that you don't need the office to get together in person. And you can choose to work and collaborate with your peers in alternative workplace settings. So things like having employee offsites and seeing people in their work norms is quite interesting. When I was at DuckDuckGo, we planned a company retreat where a lot of people that had never experienced what it was like to work in a different time zone all went to Japan to see how the person who was living and working in Japan stayed up for those all-hand meeting. And we gained empathy. We gained insight into how to work better together. We gained insight into asynchronous work. That couldn't have happened if we were all going into a central office. And so thinking outside of the box, thinking outside of those 4 walls, that cubicle can happen where you're still getting to people together in person, building relationships. You just don't need an office to get there. And the final stat of 85% being hybrid, how many percent of those companies would start a new company today as hybrid versus just doing hybrid because they already have the sunk cost of that office to begin with?
Ooh, nice, Allie. I do like your last point. What would you start with today, as well as that empathy building exercise as a design thinker and a person that loves Japan? I think that sounds like a lot of fun. So Rob, you're back on stage again. We're going to do 2 more minutes and you get to do a little bit of a rebuttal. So I'm excited to hear your thoughts. Ready? Go.
Yeah, first of all, I love that point that Ali just made. I think a lot of companies would not choose to be fully on site if they started today. But I do think a bunch of companies would actually start as hybrid. And to be clear, I don't think that fully remote is a bad option by any means. I think for a lot of folks, it may be the best option. In my mind, within the idea of hybrid where the employee chooses, that's an option available to you. You could choose to go into the office or choose not to go into the office at all. If you feel like you can be connected and that works for you a couple times a year getting together, awesome. If you actually find that being in once a week is really great for you or a couple times a month, that's great for you too. I think it's just we should leave that opportunity to the employee in some ways to be able to choose. And the office, for a lot of folks, actually creates a valuable space to be able to do some of those things. A couple other things that I'll note. One of the things that Ali said in the beginning was that if you choose hybrid, you're kind of not getting the full value out of this globally distributed kind of like workforce. And I think the problem with that argument is that hybrid companies don't have to have a single global headquarters. In fact, I would argue that like you should have lots of really small locations distributed globally where your people are, that maybe as small as 2 or 3 or 5 people could drop into. And so I don't think it's that the right answer is everyone should have to move to Redmond, right? And everybody goes into the office a couple of days a week. You could have small locations all over the place, be in a hybrid environment, still create those opportunities for connection, and have people in every market, as you described, who are kind of like working in the place where they operate and still get that full benefit. The last thing I'll say is that in terms of like the really, really large companies and like the structured hybrid, I think you're right. And I think the answer is for them, it's just a stepping stone. And if you've got hundreds of thousands of people, structured hybrid is maybe a step in the right direction, but I think they'll move more to employees' choice over time.
Awesome. Okay. Nice rebuttal, Rob. And I see some agreement happening as well, actually, as you all are talking. And now we're going to take a few questions from the audience, and then we will vote for bragging rights on LinkedIn of who won this round. And so we have this coming on in. Actually, Christina wants to know, Rob, are you hybrid?
So we are at Scoop for employee's choice, the way we set it up. So everybody's got choice.
Awesome. That was what I felt like a strong, you seem like a strong preference for employee choice. So that makes sense there. Okay, so we have from Emily, where I'd want to know more about the hybrid data. Does craving in-person time reflect on the ideal employee desire, or is it a reflection on the current optimization of remote first work at their environment? Of those folks who want 1+ day in the office, are they having a good remote experience, or should that be optimized? So if you are going in 1 day a week, what makes it actually worthwhile, and what would be the parameters you would set to make sure that people are using that time well?
I'll share a couple thoughts, and Ali, feel free to jump in. But like, I think it's a really good question, Emily. It's hard to say, right? Because my guess is everyone has slightly different contexts in terms of where they're coming from on this. Maybe if you've got 2 days at home and you really want 3 days, you feel one way, or maybe, if you've got 1 day and it's perfect for you, you feel a different way, My instinct is that a lot of people are grounded in associating the office with certain types of things, certain types of experiences you can have. And so a lot of folks probably are used to an office. And so when they say they never want the office, I don't think that many people yet across the broader workforce say I never want an office, but they want it less maybe than they used to before, in terms of what that looks like. To your question, Tam, on like, how would you set it up for 1 day? Generally, we find that people want to be in the office based on who else is going to be in the office. And they want to use that time more collaboratively, to be able to whiteboard things that maybe are more difficult to do virtually, or to grab coffee or lunch or team at happy hour, stuff like that. And so what we try and do, both in guidance and in software, is help people align to their office day, the day that people are going to be there, in the right way, so they can get together. They have the right types of more collaborative opportunities, so they feel like that office day was worth it. And then when they have more heads down work or other things going on, shift those to your kind of like working from home time that maybe is better suited to that type of activity.
Rob, I have a question. What's like a good tool that somebody could use to maybe decide when people are going to be in the office and when to get a coffee? Is there anything out there?
It sounds like a vaguely self-promotional tee up. But yes, if you would like to check out Scoop, you can check it out. It's at scoopforwork.com. It is free to use and get started with. Allows you to make sure you get the most out of your office days, invite folks, grab coffee, lunch, do all of these things in a really seamless way for hybrid employees. So please feel free to check it out.
And to build on that, Yeah, to build on that with another self-promotional plug, because it's the reason we're all here. In remote works, while you know my personal preference is to fully distributed companies, the book is great for companies that are trying to set themselves up as hybrid. I specifically would recommend our chapter on a digital house and team culture. And so, as Rob mentioned, when people go into an office, you already have a mental map of what's supposed to happen in an office. How do you translate that into a hybrid or a remote work setup? Well, that's by thinking through things like when and where can social meetings happen? If they're not happening in the office, are there other tools to help have those micro connections besides that just one day in the week that people are deciding in certain companies? And when that happens, how do you make decisions? So we found in Rob's data that still a lot of decisions are being made at the company level, but more and more it's coming down to being made by managers. I think it's like 19%. You'll have to fact check me. But as those managers make these decisions, how do they make them? And walking through things like a team charter, setting expectations, and making sure that people know what to expect when they're on site, to make sure that nobody's left out, that no documentation or information is only being talked about in the office, and that it transcends to everyone's computer everywhere, is going to set up your remote working mindset, regardless if you choose hybrid or fully distributed.
Awesome. Thanks, Allie. And Rob, we have some personal questions for you. One, what is your employee choice? And people are wondering what's behind the screen.
Good question.
You don't have to answer again. You don't have to.
I'm happy to answer. So it's funny for me. It's varied over time. Right now, I probably go in, I would say maybe once a month, maybe twice a month. We have kind of like a shared office space in New York where I'll meet with a couple team members, but most of the time I'm fully remote, and that works well for me. Although I don't feel like that's the only answer. Like there would be times where I'd be happier to go in more, times where I'd prefer to go in less. And then behind me, this room is divided. We have workout equipment, so it's like our gym in the house is on the other side of the divider. So
awesome, great. Well, we are finished this debate. I think you both had really strong points, but I'm curious what the audience thinks. Okay, so if everybody could come in and do a little quick vote, we have Allie versus Rob on hybrid versus meh. Do whatever you want. Be remote.
Oh. A tight race. And while people are scheduling in their votes, just another awesome collaboration that the three of us have coming up. The Flex report was going to be released the same day as the book. So February 7th, be on the lookout for Remote Works, hopefully shipped to you or on your Kindle, and the Flex report all over the internet. Tam and I have been working on some articles related to the data with our, preferences towards remote. How are we going to handle all of this data and provide value back to the community? So make sure that you keep an eye out for those articles coming at you soon. And let's do a little 10-second countdown for the final winner, or if it's a tiebreaker, then we're just have to shake hands and make that the way to kick this off. So 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and Rob, we got ourselves a tie.
I will happily walk away with a tie. I think that was a great debate, and I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I will say the same. I think one thing I've been sharing, but I haven't been sharing too publicly because I knew this debate was coming up, is that while I was a strong advocate against hybrid for the past 2 years, I'm slowly starting to warm up that if there's intentionality and people can really explain what the purpose is, what the expectations are of how they're going to use the tool, that intentionality is what matters. It's not for me personally, but if it's for you, hey, you do you. Thanks, Rob, for debating with me, and we got ourselves a tie.
Awesome.